Ajay
we
Goel,
can,
yes, he
we
is
can see
visible.
him. Yeah.
He is visible.
Ajay, can we have your video, please?
Ajay is visible, yaar.
No, but he is frozen.
I can't see him. I can't see Ajay.
Should we
All
start?
of you can
Should we start people admitting? It's already 3-2.
Yeah.
let Ajay come. No, Ajay is not visible. Harinder is not visible to me. Can we have your video, please?
Ajay is visible, yaar.
No, but he is frozen.
I can't see him.
Your
Ajay, can you
content.
speak something? I can't see Ajay. Even I can't see Ajay.
Should we start?
All of you can.
Should we start people
No.
admitting? It's
Hello,
already-
Ajay. Good. Good, you're there. Let Ajay come. No, Ajay is not visible. Harinder is not visible. Can we have your video? Ajay looks like me. He's adding from Ajay. You have to switch on your mic, please.
Malle, are we live on YouTube right now?
We are just
are
in
going
just
live.
1 minute.
We are live.
In 1 minute.
Once
We'll be
Ajay
live in
switches
1
on
minute.
his mic, then we can start.
Ajay
Okay,
is on 2
great.
logins.
Yeah, we are live now.
Okay.
Great.
Sure. Go ahead.
So now we can start. Malla, you can start adding people. Hi guys, on behalf of NITCA 8186 batch, I welcome all of you for our first panel discussion on this panel. And I am very happy
Let people come.
to invite my classmates and my dear friends. We'll
And
start
Con.
with Narinder Dubey, who's from Singapore, Ankur Gupta, who's in Chandigarh. Then we have Dinesh Agrawal, who's in Mumbai, Ajay Goyal, who's in Cyprus, and we have Rajesh Pandey again from Mumbai. So I hope we will have a very fruitful and intellectual discussion today. And topic is known to everybody. It is word after Corona, COVID-19, and 1 in 1,000-year opportunity for India. So I hope it is going to be very interesting discussion. So I'll start with Ajay first. Can we have spotlight on Ajay, please? Hi, Ajay. Good morning to you in Cyprus.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Ajay,
I think I'm
I've
the
known
only
you
one
for
in a
almost
country
15
without COVID right now. We have no restrictions, no limitations, no quarantine. They were lifted 2 days ago. So if my views are a little bit too positive, forgive me, because we are feeling very positive here.
Okay, great. So Ajay, I have known you for so many years. You have been a go-getter. You are a globe-trotter. From backpacking in Europe to Russia trading to print media in Russia to Cyprus. Then you lived in London for so many years. Then you've been a fund manager. You have also fought an election as MP on independent seat from Chandigarh. Then you own a Zenning resort in Cyprus. You know, you are now an independent investor. You are an investment strategist, now living in Cyprus. You have not only visited many countries, but you have also lived there, like lived your life there. Like you've lived few years in Russia. You have lived in London for so long, and I think Cyprus is your home now after India. So your perspective is very matured and it is strong on word posturing and word behavior. So my first question goes to you, Ajay. You have written an article recently on Facebook, which you also shared with me. And it is a lovely article in which you wrote that after every pandemic, just like plague in 1918, most of the kingdoms like Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, German, Russian, they all fell down. And you also anticipate that world order after COVID-19 is going to be very different. So I want to know your views on that, please.
So as you all know, when I left India, we were in a different world. There were two superpowers. There was United States and there was USSR. And although we did not know what was existing outside India, we had a certain understanding from reading newspapers and listening to friends and people as to what kind of a world we were living in. India was very isolated at the time. But just 2 years after I left, we experienced the collapse of Soviet Union. It was perhaps one of the biggest earth-shaking events in our lifetime. I was there on the front lines. As you know, I spent 3 nights in front of the Russian White House, in front of tanks. In some ways, it was inevitable that that kind of communist dictatorship, it could not last, but nobody had expected and with precision foretold that a great empire, the greatest country on earth, the biggest landmass on earth could just disintegrate in front of our eyes. We also saw the disintegration of Yugoslavia, which was also in Eastern Bloc. It was more or less an independent country. It was a member of the non-aligned movement, also disintegrated. And that was a terrible war. So over the next few years, I would say I have come to an understanding that the most earth-shaking moments in the last 1,000 years have happened either because of wars started by European countries in their search for wealth, gold, any kind of prosperity. They have traveled around the world. They've taken over lands, countries. They have looted, massacred, marauded, and they have, over the last 400 or 500 years, caused huge changes and shifts in how the world functions. And the second event that has caused such changes has been the Spanish flu of 1918, 1919. And as you said, some people say that all the empires of Europe collapsed because of the First World War. But a lot of historians say that the real cause of that was the mass. World War itself affected only a small number of people.
Ajay, I'll request you to stay on the question and answer, please. Otherwise, we'll just carry it on.
I'll just come to that immediately. So,
your view on India. Your view on the world.
Yeah, European empires collapsed because of the flu. Now we believe that COVID-19 has shown the weaknesses in the only remaining great power in the world, which is United States. United States has shown itself to be a hugely weak, very fragmented, very broken country, which is almost at war with itself. The federal system does not work. The states do not follow the federal government. So the country is imploding more or less from within. So I believe that we are going to see once again a return to a multipolar world, but not a bipolar world. So we must understand there are going to be various power. United States is not going to disintegrate. It is going to remain a power, but Russia will emerge as a very strong power. The relationship between NATO countries in Europe and United States will change. United States will not have so much impact on Europe. And many people are saying that European Union is also on the verge of disintegration. Italians, Spanish, Greeks are not happy with the way the Northern European countries dominate life there. And obviously, one of the greatest powers to emerge out of all this, and I don't mean a military power. I'm not speaking of power in terms of military power. I'm speaking of economic power, and I'm speaking of power that goes down to the grassroots level. When I'm speaking of power, when I mean the ordinary citizen feels empowered, when there is scientific power in that country, when the country is self-reliant, when it has got its own energy sources, when it's got its own systems and institutions that work. That's what I mean by power. China, in my opinion, will emerge as one of the greatest powers. And this will inevitably create, and now I come to my point of what it means for India. Emergence of China will inevitably create.
I'll ask later. India, I'll ask later. I'll ask for India later. So we talk about the word now, and then we go to India.
This is what I expect is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years as an impact of COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, guys, I would like to, many people have joined us now. Let me tell the rules of the discussion. I will ask one question to each panelist. And after that question, any other panelist, if they want to respond, can respond, please. So to the same question, they can add. So after Ajay, does anyone want to add on something?
No, I think it would be good to have views of everyone on the same subject, which is how is the world going to be after Corona. So I think what I was saying, Roger, is I think it's good to have everyone's view on how they see the world after Corona. So, well, if it's my turn, then I just believe that
it is for that specific question, Dinesh.
So if it's a specific question about how the world will be after Corona.
When after every pandemic, there is a change of word order. So what is the word order you think will change? Just generally, then I'm going to ask you a specific question which is also related to this. So do I ask you that question so you can add on your views?
Yeah, you could do that actually.
Okay. So I'll take Dinesh as my next panelist. Dinesh Agarwal, I like to, of course, we are very good friends and I've known you throughout. So Dinesh is Joint Managing Director of Panasonic Life Solutions India. Is heading new business ISA MEA region. Dinesh is part of Panasonic since acquisition of Anchor over 12 years now. His efforts and contribution have been recognized by Panasonic by an award by the president of Panasonic in 2015. He is now heading Panasonic into new business areas like solar panels, energy management, electric vehicle changer, ventilation systems, smart city solutions, IoT products, housing products, and based on emerging trends in India, South Asia, Middle East, and Africa. His career over 32 years have been with experience of having joint ventures from Britain, America, and Taiwan. He also has experience of enriching startup being initial part of two companies, one concerning cloud services, another voice over IP, and manage them hosting in India. Of course, he's a batchmate. He's from NIT Kurukshetra, and he's done MBA from IIM Calcutta. He has a certificate in export marketing from IIFT New Delhi. He is member of Latin America and Customer Focus and Marketing Committee of Confederation of Indian Industry. He was a member of IT Committee of Bombay Chamber of Commerce. At present, he is part of ET India Leadership Council and FIOs and Committee on FTA. Dixie, you've done too good.
Hey, you've been very
so my question goes to you. My question goes to you is related to word. See, after Second World War, we had institutes like UN, we had institutes like WHO, NATO, WTO. They were formed by America and European countries coming together to basically manage the other lowly people all over the world. And that is how they're managing us, Asians, Africans, till now. So after this pandemic, you can obviously add your concern about the other question which I asked to Ajay also. After this pandemic, do you think these institutes will have value, especially with China acting funny? Do you think these institutes still have value after COVID?
So I think these institutes have been and they will continue to be influenced by commerce. I think let's face the fact that the regional polarization, all the trade pacts, all such unions which have brought nations together. The core of all of that is economic. It's commerce, right? So going forward, it is the dominance of commerce which is going to be guiding these institutes. So, one hears about President Trump threatening WHO and so on. The fact remains that WHO will toe the line, of the countries where its funding, where its cause is getting support from, right? So, so in whatever way they have been relevant all these years, they will continue to be as relevant as they were. But eventually, it's all about individual countries which hold the power of commerce, the power of business. We'll call the shots. So the world was polarized. The world will remain polarized, and I think this COVID also has shown that our world remains polarized. It is the world, which is split into two parts. A world which has education, a world which has money, a world which has nutrition, is different from the world on the other side. Even within the country, you're seeing that people who have education, people who have wealth, people who are adequately nutrition, who have access to healthcare are the people who are doing well, and the others are not. So sadly, that's how the world is, and the world will remain that way. Of course, the world in the short period following Corona will be more cautious. They'll be cautious about travel. They'll be cautious about food. There'll be more mistrust created between the countries in terms of the trade pacts, and in terms of using the goods, and in terms of using the education infrastructure of each other's country. But I believe this is all a short memory. I mean, human beings forget things very fast. Even the worst of disasters, we tend to forget. So this also will be forgotten over the next few years, and it will be the world back to its normalcy. So whatever we make in terms of the new world order, etc., the new world order is only in terms of in the last 60, 75 days, the various ways of communication, the various ways of doing commerce. Those things are here to stay. But the world at large will remain what it is. And so to answer your question, so will the institutions which have been ruling the world. Yeah.
Okay. You were answering something which Ajay said earlier. You can add that also.
No, I think it was in a way, linked to that in terms of the global order. As I said, I don't see a major change.
Ajay, you would like to rebut. Do you have any views on this same question?
Dinesh, I believe human habits, you're right, don't change. We are not going to change because of the pandemic. We're not going to change the way we think, behave, act, consume. In fact, some of the worst human instincts might show up. But the geopolitical alignments that we've been living with, the Bretton Woods Institutes, the World Bank, the IMF, it's all going to go through a complete transformation, if not a complete collapse and regeneration. You will see the center of gravity shift more towards the east. You will see greater financial power in the hands of Shanghai. Shanghai will emerge as a greater financial center rather than Hong Kong, rather than New York, and so on. We've seen the collapse of oil prices, which means the dependency on Gulf countries and Middle East is reducing. It will set in motion a lot of events. They may not reach a full circle immediately. We will not see something happen in 1 month or 2 months, but I believe in 5 to 10 years, based on my experience of how I have seen Europe change, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, and so on and so forth, I believe in 5 to 10 years, we would be living in a completely different world, Dinesh.
Great.
Yeah, I think,
Any of our
yeah.
panelists want to add to Ajay? Rajesh, Ankur, Dugal?
Yeah, maybe let me just add. Of course, it's going to be a very different world. I think that goes without saying. But the pace of change and in what direction things change, I think that's what we want to look at. For me, fundamentally, been thinking about this, the notion of globalization, that the notion that the world is flat. We are part of one world, with unencumbered travel. You can go and set up businesses anywhere. You can look for outsourcing. I think that
Correct.
notion is going to change significantly because people are going to evaluate what they want to do. I'm talking more about business differently. It's not only about efficiency, it's also going to be about survival. I think what COVID has shown us very clearly, everybody was trying to optimize their supply chains, go for the lowest cost. That may not be the only determinant. You need to look at, can I survive in the new world? A black swan event like a COVID, I think, has been a wake-up call that while efficiency is important, your ability to survive these events is even more important. So it's going to be a very interesting new world.
Right, Dugal. Thank you very much. Now I go on to our another panelist, Ankur Gupta. Can we have focus on him, please? Spotlight on Ankur Gupta, please. Yeah, there I can see Ankur. Hello, good afternoon, Ankur. So Ankur is from Indian Administrative Services. He has, after his engineering, he's also done MBA in marketing. He is now Principal Secretary with Government of Haryana, of course, Department of Information Technology, Electronics and Communication, Higher Education and Technical Education. To me, Ankur, you are a Raymond's man. You have been SDM, you've been Additional Deputy Commissioner, you've been Commissioner, you've been Administrator Urban Development, you've been District Magistrate, you've been Divisional Commissioner at MD levels. You have managed agro industries, rural development, health, industrial training, power transmission, project director. You were for school education, then you were MD Electronics and Information Technology, and you were Director of General Higher Education. You've been associated with printing and stationery. You've headed, of course, new renewable energy recently, elections, electronics and information, higher education, technical education. As I told you, to me, you are a Raymond's man. So my question to you, Ankur, on the world arena is specifically about China. On the recent Hague Tribunal, there was a decision against China in South China Sea, and China did not care two hoots, and nobody talked. America did not talk. Russia did not talk. None of the European could not speak a single word against China. And now recently, everybody has gotten together, about 150 odd countries. They want to write a letter to China, say, boss, please let us see your facility. What have you done with Corona? Do you think China is going to respond? And how do you think is going to be China's posture post-COVID? It very well knows that China actually has tackled this virus. It's from China or not, we do not know. But tackling of virus the way China has done has been astonishing. And the superpower, which we call USA, has kneeled down in front of everybody, in front of our eyes. Your views, Ankur, please.
First of all, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody wherever it is applicable. And thank you for letting me in. Now, what I'm saying is totally my personal view. There's nothing official about it. It's totally my personal view. No, in my personal view, China is not going to respond. They are going to stay put in their position. And I would agree with a few other panelists, is going to grow stronger. And nothing is going to change in the immediate future. It is going to take some time. Changes will be there, but we'll learn to adjust, and we have already started adjusting to what the situation is. And yes, now countries will try to focus more inwards rather than building linkages overseas and abroad. That is going to happen. But to cut it short, I don't think personally China is going to care two hoots about whatever anybody says.
Great. Anybody else wants to take this question?
I'd just like to add, to what Ankur said, and I think again I'm sort of coming back to my point. Ultimately, it's a commercial reasons. So while whatever the countries might threaten China, the fact remains there is no other available capacity in the world which can feed the developed markets. The consumption markets that we have created, whether it's the US or the Europe, is getting fed by the capacities which China has built up, and there is no alternate to it in the short term. So while slowly you would have countries in Europe and US trying to create, maybe their home capacities, maybe development capacities in India, Vietnam, somewhere in Southeast Asia. But the fact remains today there's no alternate to China. And whatever, I'm using again, President Trump may say, the fact remains the US debt economy will have to be supported by China. So again, from the commercial reasons, from the commerce point of view, you have to bend down, kneel down, listen to all the crap that China says and does. So yeah, the point remains. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else wants to contribute on this, please? Otherwise, I will move to Dougal. Okay, can we have spotlight on Dougal, please? Yeah, good evening, Dougal, to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Navinder Dougal is another panelist who's group head of DBS Bank in Singapore, and he's heading SME product solutions. He's responsible for developing cash management, trade finance, supply chain propositions for SME client segment. Navinder has been with DBS for last 18 years, and prior to DBS, of course, you were with ABN AMRO Bank and Citibank, and you've lived in Singapore, I think, all the while after doing your MBA. And he's done his MBA from IIM Bangalore. So my question to you, Dougal, specifically goes, because I've known you as a person, you have a very, very different kind of a view. Like I was talking to Ajay some time back. He said that you have a 35,000 feet view of the area, sitting in a pivotal position like Singapore, countries like Indonesia, Malaysia around you, seeing China closely, understanding South China Sea problems, understanding how it is behaving as far as Singapore is concerned. Now, after this pandemic of COVID, how do you think Southeast Asia is going to come up as compared to US and Europe?
Thanks, Roger, and really happy to be here amongst friends. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Maybe let me share, I've been in Singapore for the last 25 plus years now, and I've been traveling the region, very familiar with this whole ASEAN region, what's happening here, and how things have changed. See, my thinking is shaped quite a bit by also looking back. You should need to look at history, what happened before, and that is a good indicator of how things are going to shape up in the future as well. So obviously the big gorilla in this region is obviously China. And, so if you look at China, China started actually pretty much similar to where India was. 1995, their share of, as a manufacturing part of the global economy is to something like 5%. Today, China is 27% of the global world manufacturing. So over a period of time and a relatively short period of time, and based on a lot of things they've done right, they were able to attract a lot of manufacturing, and they've become a major player in the global supply chains, as well as investments that have come in, mostly from US and Europe. And you can see that share of manufacturing declined in the US and also in Western Europe, also in Japan, and a lot of that came into China. Obviously, a lot of that was driven by the low cost and the infrastructure that China was able to put together. In 2010, China overtook the US and became the #1 manufacturing economy in the world. So they've been at it for now about 20 years, and for 10 years, they've been the #1 manufacturing powerhouse in the world.
Right.
So the point I really want to make is that what China has done over these 25, 30 years is immense. It will be very difficult to replicate that in other areas. China is also not going to give it up so easily. So many people have moved above the poverty levels. So there are multiple things at play. There's economics, there is politics, there's infrastructure. So, while we may blame China for a lot many things, but again, China is not they have very bright people, very smart people, and they know how to navigate through this period of time. And also, as you know, one of my co-panelists mentioned, people have short memories. We've been through some of these before. So my view is things will change. They will definitely change, but at the same time, China will continue to be a major destination for manufacturing, what they have done over the years and built up the capabilities. Now, from a geopolitical, what's going on between Trump and China, how that plays out is a different story. But as a businessman, I would still look at China, what value it brings to the table. But having said that, yes, I would want to also diversify rather than put all my eggs in one basket. And about ASEAN, I think most of our economies are very much dependent on China. So I think what China does and how they move into the future will have an impact on Singapore, on Australia, on Hong Kong, obviously, Philippines. So we are all very, very interconnected. So I think as a bloc, we are very much dependent on China. And by dependence, it doesn't mean that we are just following what China does, but yes, our economic future is linked to what China does.
Right, great, lovely answer. Anybody wants to add to it? Ankur, Ajay, Rajesh, Dixie, yeah, Ajay, please go on.
In fact, I want to ask you, Roger, because you've also done a lot of business in China.
My God, okay.
And Navinder and Dinesh, there is some expectation that somehow Trump could force many American companies to move out of China. And that possibly represents an opportunity for Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, but possibly also for India. Does anyone really believe that India is ready for that kind of manufacturing? And is that real or it's just a pipe dream?
Do I give an answer to that to you? Okay. I have been in connection with China for over 15 years. You know it. We have 10 collaborations with China. 5 of them we take technologies and manufacture in India, and other 5 of them we take the equipment and promote in India in our projects, not the complete project, but part of the project. I have visited China extensively over 15 years. I know China like back of my hand. These people are very, very ambitious. They are very shrewd like India. They don't our Indians. They want to work 24/7 where they see money. See, as Word has an opportunity today, I'll come to that. Word has somehow, because of this Corona thing, they don't like China because China has been, I would not like to use my usual word here on the panel, but China has been taking everybody to a task. They give us an equipment which is half the cost of the manufacturing cost in India. Now, how do you explain that? I can't. If anybody can, please come ahead and explain it to me. Why should not I buy from China when the cost is half? See, it's all about capital economy. So if America is asking somebody to shift from China to India infrastructure, we all know, we'll discuss in the next segment of our program, in which that's a very interesting debate also. I will not talk about India right now. We can discuss in that panel discussion. But anywhere in the world, can they manufacture any equipment less than the cost of China? See, it's all about money. If you put money aside, it's not like OPEC. You have a collaboration and a treaty that you cannot sell oil at a particular price. If I get an equipment which is good quality, better quality at, let's say, 20% less cost, 30% less cost, we all are signatory of WTO. Why should I not buy from China? That is going to be a very big question to ask. I cannot answer that, but that question is going to be very, very big. How a world opens up after that. As far as company shifting is concerned, I think they will have a two-pronged policy. They will continue in China and also try and shift somewhere in India, Vietnam, maybe Thailand, or maybe Malaysia. Start production there, see how things develop, and it's a 5-year or 10-year process. Then they will slowly enhance the Indian manufacturing setup, and then they can breathe. Okay, now I can shift everything from China. Overnight is not going to be switch on and switch off, not to me. Okay, I was not a panelist, Rajay. You made me one. Thank you so much. Okay, our next panelist is Rajesh now. Can we have focus on Rajesh, please? Hi, Rajesh.
Yeah, hi. Hi,
How are
Rajesh.
you? So Rajesh is Indian Revenue Services guy. He's presently posted with, he's heading DRI in Mumbai. DRI, of course, is Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. As he wrote to me, his designation is a tongue twister, but I will still spell it out to everybody. He's Principal Additional Director General. So currently, but you can say he's head of DRI Mumbai. And he supervised work DRI in states of Maharashtra, Goa, MP, and Chhattisgarh. DRI basically combats narcotics, psychotropic substances, and commercial frauds related to import, export, besides handling anti-smuggling. So he's posted at various places. As of I know him, he's been at Mumbai port earlier, then he shifted to Ahmedabad, where we met up also. Then he was in Pune for some time. Now he's back in Mumbai as DRI chief. One thing additional I want to tell to everybody about Rajesh, which people do not know. He is a highly spiritual human being. He is less human and more spiritual in his thoughts. So he's at a different level than all of us, and his perspective to things on the word, on subjects is totally different. So it's going to be very interesting to have you, Rajesh, and discuss everything what is happening around the world in India with you. So my first question goes to you, Rajesh. As we have discussed till now, there is a war, there is a trade war between America and China going on. It's pretty vocal. In the first phase of that trade war, India did not take any advantage, of course. As Ajay put up, which we'll discuss later, we have many issues. सबसे पहले issue होता है भैया कर लो TV में आ जाए, everything is there, but we are not somehow able to do it. We have to understand why. Countries like Vietnam, countries like even Malaysia, countries like even Thailand took advantage of this situation in first phase. A lot of industry has shifted from China to Vietnam, and they're doing very well as far as this advantage of trade war is concerned. Do you think there are other countries apart from these, barring India को छोड़ देते हैं थोड़ी देर, who are effective enough to take that advantage and come up as global leaders?
Thank you, Roger. And also, I would like to thank the other two behind the scenes organizers of this webinar, our great Harinder Salwan and Pradeep Malla. And so far, we have heard a wide spectrum of views. And as I see it, the project of globalization had already suffered a setback in last few years. The trade war between US and China had started in pre-COVID days. So in a way, this COVID would have an accelerating impact on these kind of anti-globalization moves. One thing is very clear, that when the chips are down, you have to see in your neighborhood alone. So that feeling is sinking in, and it is also reflected in the way sourcing will happen. There are definitely certain sectors which are going to take a hit, like all the optional purchases with the recession looming large are deferred or deferred substantially. So with that kind of a scenario, the demand is going to take a dip. So how much actually manufacturing output of China would be required across the world, that also is a question mark. Meanwhile, as one of the panelists had mentioned, I think Navinder, that already some shifting of manufacturing capacity had started in last few years to Malaysia, to Vietnam, we have also seen like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka becoming major exporters of garments, and they have left India much behind. So all these things were already happening. Now India has a challenge at this moment. Will come in the second part of this webinar. Uh, what I see vis-a-vis the global power balance, definitely at the moment, pessimism with respect to supremacy of US, in my view, is also because they have a president who is more a theme of memes than a real world leader. So we have to just go back 3.5 years, and so long as we had Obama, that kind of situation was not there. US was seen to be going taking some corrective actions. US has a great quality that over the last 50, 60 years, it has managed to attract the best brains in the world, whether it is from India, from China, from Europe, that kind of magnet which it has, whether its top universities will lose that immediately. So all those also are huge powers, not only in terms of technology, it is also because the soft power that we are copying our food habits. Our children are only seeing Hollywood entertainment. So all this is a huge soft power also, and it is not going to vanish immediately. So it will take some time. Definitely, China is a very solid country today. One of our batchmates during the webinar had asked that, do you foresee disintegration of China like it happened for USSR? Before it happened in 1989, who would have predicted that in 1989 it would happen? Or who would have predicted fall of Berlin Wall? So it is very difficult to predict. But looking at the current situation, I think the answer would be a solid no, because it is something which are very unexpected events, and I don't think anybody can predict them. So disintegration is definitely a very unlikely thing, uh, which Ramesh had asked. But overall, definitely, we are looking at a multipolar world, and we have seen that how countries got together to demand through WHO to make an inquiry into the origin of this virus in China, which China was stonewalling. And it is my personal view that the kind of tensions which are being India is being subjected to at LAC is not totally unrelated to India becoming chairman of the committee in WHO. So these are all events which are connected, and the total strategic environment will change, because India is not only a major neighbor but also a challenger. In terms of no other country in South Asia is that kind of a challenger for China, both militarily or economically, though we are very small as compared to them, but still. And the advantage naturally flows to China. We already have, to Pakistan, we have already seen a statement from China that Pakistan is our all-weather friend. So we are, in terms of geopolitics, heading for a definitely new era, and it is a very interesting time ahead. So let's see how it impacts the business decisions. But some reduction in total purchases will have an impact on the total manufacturing. That window will be there. How much manufacturing the countries are able to attract, that will depend on that. But a real rethinking is happening about the globalization concept per se. That's my view. Thank you, Raj.
Right. Great, Rajesh. Any of the panelists want to add on this, please? Okay. Yeah, Dugal, please.
Yeah, very quickly, on the theme of manufacturing, I think one very important factor, and this is looking ahead, is value add. You can choose to manufacture garments or, bicycles, but the margins there are very, very small. So, if we have to look ahead, it's really about the value add. And I'm kind of talking more about technology and automation and robotics. So, as we discuss this further discussion, I think areas where we should be looking for investments or that have bigger value add, maybe more from India context. So it may not be your traditional manufacturing, it could be other areas of manufacturing. So just, simple, wanted to put it on the table. So different types of manufacturing. Yeah.
Great, Dougie. So now we move on from the word, how word stands after COVID, move on to India. Before coming to India, I would like to announce here that all the and all the panelists, you can please put it on the chat as it's been asked to you, and those questions will be asked to the panelists either by me or could be asked directly from you guys. So please do that. We now move on to India. Our Honorable Prime Minister, as you all know, has made a very, very good speech recently. And he spoke a couple of lines which were in line to my thinking. He spoke, we should go for Atmanirbharta. It is a very, very strong line. And then about 20 lakh crore package was announced by our Honorable, which was in line with Prime Minister dreams every Indian have, that we should be Atmanirbhar. Now, we will analyze in this section, Atmanirbhar is okay, but there are some we want to ask our panelists, and I'm sure they will be able to answer my question. And if people who matter are seeing this on YouTube later or live, will be able to address to the national issue also and try to implicate and rectify it to maximum that they can. So I'll again start with Ajay. Can we have him on the screen, please? Right, Ajay. So India now, my specific question. We had East India Company, which ruled India for about 200, 300 years. They came in with ships because we did not have ships at that time. They showed us mirrors and they took off our diamonds. You agree with me? Now, internationally, what I am fan of, and India has never done, or other countries have not done except China, has not made any platform till now. I want to specifically ask you the modern East India companies which are ruling India for so many years. I will name them like Facebook. I will name them Twitter. I will name them Instagram. I will name them Google. I will name them Gmail. China has categorically banned these in China because of reasons known to all our panelists and maybe all our intellectual and august viewers. Now, in this world of social networking, India does not have a single social networking channel. What are your views, Ajay? Where do we go?
So I can only talk from my experiences, less theoretically, more based on my personal experiences. I think you mentioned, or someone mentioned, The World is Flat, the book by Roger Friedman. In fact, I have been a very big critic of that book for 20 years because I always believe there can be no equality among unequals. The whole notion that we could somehow all become equals and compete with American companies and British and German companies, and the world would become flat. I think it was something that was a new form of imperialism, colonialism, that we should all start consuming their products without paying any duties, without protecting our markets. And the worst impact of East India Company was not just to take our diamond and gold and our fine Muslims and Sikhs Muslims and cottons, it was destruction of our industry. That is the biggest achievement of East India Company.
That's what Facebook is doing.
So in the last few years, very much like you, I have been on the digital side of things in China and also on the digital side of things in Russia. I want to tell you some very astonishing facts. About 6 years ago, Russia was nearly 90% dependent for its food products from Europe. In fact, all of the chicken eaten in Russia used to come from United States. They were called Bush legs. It started during George Bush Sr., and they used to export all the frozen chicken to Russia. So the Russians were totally dependent for their food products on Americans and Europeans. As of last year, you'd be surprised to know that Russia's biggest export is not oil and gas. It is agricultural products. In Russian stores today, because of the sanctions, because sanctions started 5 years ago, and Europe put Russia on sanctions list and the Americans put them on sanctions and they went with counter sanctions, they have completely indigenized their food production. As of today, they are actually the first vaccine which is going into human trials is not a Chinese vaccine, it's a Russian vaccine. They're not reporting it because it's not a part of the WHO protocols, because of, again, sanctions and all those reasons. So they invested very heavily in science and technology. One of the best social media in the world, guys, actually, I consider it better than Facebook, is called Vkontakte, vk.com. It is a highly developed social media platform. Even better than WhatsApp and Messenger, one of the best communication apps in the world is Telegram, developed by a Russian guy. One of the best search engines in the world is Yandex. One of the best.
We're talking of India. Ajay, we're talking of India.
What I'm telling you is that we are missing all of that.
Yes.
So unless we focus on developing high quality, high tech products, value add in our own country, unless we have our own internet, unless we have our own name servers, unless unless we have means of production, there is no talk of India becoming a manufacturing hub. That's the point.
Ajay, what I asked you question was specifically about social networking. You understand intelligently that you put a click on Facebook and 10p goes to USA. Okay, it goes to US. It doesn't stay in India. Our 50 crore people or 20 crore people uses WhatsApp. Money is going to US, and that subtle money, you and me, people don't even know that it goes to US. Your WhatsApp, we are on Zoom today. The bank in San Jose is getting credited. Do you know that?
Right.
So this is what I'm saying. Where is India in this? When we are talking about Atmanirbharta, do you accept India is nowhere, or we can do something or not? That's my question.
Atmanirbharta is impossible without intellectual self-reliance. If you don't own the science, if you don't own the infrastructure, if you do not have the most basic means of communication, like your own email, your own messenger, your own things, so that you can keep the data in the country. Because while we are talking free on Zoom, we all understand that all of our data is going to be packaged and sold back to somebody, and somebody is going to make money on it. So yes, India needs to be first self-reliant, to take a moonshot, to take a frog leap into the future. We cannot repeat what China did 30 years ago. What we should be doing is we should be 5 years ahead now. And very much like China, we have to create our own WeChats, Baidus, we have to create our own Red Books, and digitally, the best brains in India have to be put together to create a new future, which is a digital future on the cyberspace. That will bring back real manufacturing jobs that will have an impact on real economy, on the financial sector, and all the other sectors. But I completely agree with you. We need to have ownership of products in India, which people are today using 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, on their smartphones, on their mobile phones. We don't have an operating system made in India. We don't have a good email made in India. We don't have a good messenger chat made in India. And all of the data, all of the use is being sold out from us. So we need to be free of these new colonial enterprises like Facebook and Google.
Thank you, Ajay. Anybody wants to add? Finger, please.
Yeah, so let me add. I think I think problem with us Indians is that we can't decide whether we want to be capitalist or we want to be socialist. And I think we expect that both the world should come to us.
We were never both, Dixit. We were never both.
So that's a whole problem, you know. So we want both, you know, the best of both the worlds. So when we feel threatened, we want to suddenly become socialists, and when we want to grow, we suddenly want to become capitalists. I mean, it doesn't work that way, right? So India has an equal opportunity, had an equal opportunity to create Googles and Facebooks of the world. Why didn't we? I mean, what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for the government to protect us? That's a China way of doing it? So, you know, the government can protect us, and we can create, you know, multi-billion enterprises. Ultimately, what is Amazon doing? It is buying products for India, selling to Indians, and making money out of it. Why can't an Indian company do it? No one is stopping them from doing it. So let's face it. Today, US is what it is and will continue to be what it is because of the brands that it has created. No one can deny the fact that American brands are equally accepted in every country across the world. So there is a globalization of brands, whether it's food, clothing, whatever else. And these are all brands which are basically, US based. And that'll give them the dominance. We have to start appreciating what the country has. The country has a market which is waiting to be untapped. The per capita consumption of every good and every service is one of the lowest in India. Look at the immense opportunity we have. Why do we start crying, at a short, hurdle that we get? We start, saying that the world has come to an end. Look at, on a long-term point of view, you can never go wrong in any business that you create in this country, right? If you have the resilience, if you have the belief to, back it up.
You're absolutely wrong. In a family, father is earning a lot of money, mother is also earning, but they all want their son to be also self-dependent and do something in life. India is rich in its minerals. India has done hugely well. I just saw Surandan Thakur's message. We are done very well in space independently. We are agriculture independent country. We have done very good in software. It's beautiful in the world. But our point of discussion today is that if out of the discussion something comes out which are gray areas where India can improve, we can always improve. We are not demeaning anybody. We are only discussing. This is what is the discussion. If we point out something, it is never demeaning. It is that we have an opportunity of doing it.
That's the point I'm trying to come to. So
130 million people. I mean, we can. Some of us can, of course, as you rightly pointed out, it's a capitalist economy. Nobody's stopping Tatas or any of big like Reliance to have such a network. Why have they not done something? This is a normal question asked to me many times. Sir, ये पहले क्यों नहीं हुआ था? आज तक तो कभी हुआ नहीं. This is something where we take things for granted. We are taking Facebook and WhatsApp for granted. We are, as a country, we are not even thinking. And in a country, it is not, Dixie, not just people. It is also the government which governs. It has governed China. It has governed Russia. It has governed Japan. Japan is government-driven country. Okay, where they don't have no resources, but they picked up, okay, we're good in cars, we're good in electronics, let's do that. Japan used to import iron ore from all the world and they were the highest steel company one time. Why can't we do it in India? That is my simple question to my panelists. Right? So my next question, anybody wants to add on this, please?
Roger, if I may just add, and I think this again relates to what I'm just saying. See, this last 75 days, we should appreciate what this country is. I mean, managing 1.3 billion people is not easy. This country has been managed very well in this last 75 days, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, right from the healthcare to the security, I mean, look at the chain of command which has been implemented right down to the societies in which we live. Why are we criticize our country in terms of corruption and that you can get away with everything? Why has it not happened during this last 75 days? Why were you not able to take out your car, bribe the policeman and go wherever you wanted? Everything has worked like a clockwork, right? Which means when this country wants to do something, it can. Right.
I agree with you.
That's a confidence which India will give to the world. The global leaders and the global business leaders will, learn or get a message out of this, that this country can be managed when it wants to get managed, right?
Exactly, right. So fortunately, we have a prime minister who is able to manage this country, and fortunately, we'll do good. and fortunately he is listening. So my next question goes to Ankur. Ankur, can we have it? Can we have it on the spotlight, please? Ankur, please.
Roger, can you repeat? I was logged out. I was logged out for the last about 30 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, Ankur, welcome back. Welcome back. So this is also related to your presentation, which you want to give, Ankur, what India and Haryana is doing for the world and for India. And you can give that presentation with my question, which I'm going to ask is very much related to that. See, I'm into industry for like 35 years. We've been using automation for our machines. To my surprise, till now, as I told about Facebook and all, there is not a single automation device which is good made in India. We say Siemens, we say ABB, we say Schneider. You know, why are all the automation devices? Are we doing something to manufacture in India? Please give your view, Ankur. What do you think of it? And you can also give your presentation, which is, I know, related to that.
Thank you, Roger. I'll like to take you all back to the time when we passed out of our college in '86. And after that, steadily, we have been seeing the Indian economy doing very well. And my 30 years experience says this growth in Indian economy was driven only by one major class. That were the boys and girls from middle class families who did not have any financial backing, who did not know how to speak English, but they had confidence in themselves. And I think many examples are among ourselves only, we can see it and find it. That was the strength. And this is what I feel is again going to be a strength in the coming crisis. Because if in those times, these parents, I'm not saying it just from my past experience, but even now, daily I'm interacting with young boys and girls who are coming up with such novel ideas, good ideas, which I believe is going to be our USP. Now, another thing I'll share on my screen. Pradeep, can you let me share my screen, please?
You're allowed, Ankur, you can share.
You can share.
Is it visible?
Yeah.
All right. Like Rabindranath Tagore said, we have no time to lose, but we must scramble for a chance. Now, post-COVID, what are the new emerging opportunities? Online education. Definitely, yes. Online medical consultation. Diversified supply chain. E-commerce, entertainment. Pradeep, are you moving my screen or is it moving on my own?
It's moving by your own.
Okay. Now, e-commerce and entertainment. Entertainment from home is going to be a great new business. Then big data analysis, virtual meeting, artificial intelligence, machine learning, more connectivity. And we have to be paperless, cashless, faceless, because the less contact we have. So all these are the business opportunities which I see in the future emerging. And now related to this is the cybersecurity. If we are using IT in a big way, we need cybersecurity, connectivity right till the Gram Panchayat level. That is again, now BharatNet has gone to most of the panchayats, but then the fiber is lit, nobody is using it. Now we are looking for private players to come in and do a local cabling and then sell off connections. These are again opportunities which we need to look into it. If I were to come to Haryana, our literacy rate is better than India. Let me do one thing. Let me go slide by slide. Otherwise, this is creating a problem. Yeah. In ease of doing business, we are first in North India, third in all India. Per capita rank, first in large category states. Export, fifth in the country. GST collection, fifth in the country. Digital payment, second in the last state category. First state to computerize PDS, National E-Governance Index, state's GDP, as you can see. Now, this is our strength. I want you to please concentrate on this slide. Our young population, as of now, and 10 to 24-year-old is 356 million. Our average age 29, the youngest in the world. If we were to digitally empower them, skill them, yes, we'll be exporting manpower. Germany, Japan, Australia, US, they are growing old. So combined with my earlier statement that yes, our young middle class youth is dynamically looking forward to this opportunity. And along with this data, we have a 20 to 30-year window where we can definitely become a world power. Coming to why we are not becoming so, that I'll come to that later. This is the skilled workforce as a percentage of population. You must see we are just 2%. This is where we lack. So this is one window of opportunity which we need to utilize. We have leading institutes. We have IIM Rohtak, NIT Kurukshetra, NID Kurukshetra, IIIT Sonipat. We have 44 universities. We have 101 engineering colleges, 174 polytechnics. Every year, thousands of students are graduating. So as far as human resources are concerned, we don't have a dearth in Haryana. We have electronic manufacturing clusters, technology parks. We have innovation hubs, startups, and we have a tie-up with Until, United Nations Technology Lab, NASCOM, IMR. More than 700 services are on e-platform now. And we have processed more than 300 crore applications on this e-Saral platform. So sitting at home, even now, during COVID, when you are applying for passes, you must have used it. It is through this portal only. Cashless society. We are second in the country. So digitally, we have gone much ahead. Even for litigation management system, we are totally online here. Mera Fasal, Mera Bureau, e-stamping, DRAS, DBT, again, we are doing very well. Right to Services Act, DigiLocker, yes. DigiLocker is something which we are aggressively promoting, that once you give information to the government in any one department, you don't have to give it again to any other department. Automatically, it will be taken as a true field and pushed back into DigiLocker, and it becomes a permanent asset in the data bank. Now, what we did in COVID. These are some of the applications which we developed, and they were developed, believe me, in hours, overnight. Evening, we would have an idea. By morning, the application would be out and running. Haryana bank slotting, cash delivery at home, Jan Sahayak. Try out this app. You list any problem, and it will reach out to you immediately. Har Adesh, all information here. Sangharsh Sanani, financial support to migrants, DS, distress ration token, government distribution. I'm not going through all of them in detail, but yes, sitting at home, you can assess everything as far as Haryana is concerned. We have all our villages with the metal road, potable drinking water, power situation, we are surplus. All my gram panchayats are lit and connected with optical fiber. Startups, yes, we have plenty of startups, and the hub being in Gurgaon, where we have certain unicorns also. And we have, in fact, involved universities that is becoming incubators. 7 universities are now acting as incubators in specific fields. This is sector-wise. We have this. Yes. Now, this is the financial incentives. For micro, small, and medium enterprises, 6% interest subsidy, 50% cost for adopting technology, 50% reimbursement for quality certification, testing equipment assistance, again 50%, tax exemption, patent fee reimbursement, audit incentives, access to financial institutions. These are all being available. Roger, this was a specific question. This is the answer to that. We have a single roof clearance, international help desk, no CLU blocks, time bond clearances, and we have under various labor laws now allowed self-certification. You don't have to go to labor department or labor inspector for any certification. You can do a self-certification. There are about 11, 12 places where you could do self-certification. So in nutshell, this is what I would like to add. Now, any question?
Hearing, Ankur. Stop hearing.
Can I?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, who is speaking?
This is Dinesh actually. Ajay, you want to speak? You want to go?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. First of all, Roger, will you make this presentation available to all of us when we finish?
Yes, I think we can share it with you. Ankur will share it. We can share it with everybody rather.
Yeah, it's a very good presentation. And I just wanted to make one point. I was talking to Jagdeep Rana about a month ago at the height of the lockdown. And Jagdeep Rana is in Rajasthan and he works in Indian Oil. And he's doing something in distribution of home LPG cylinders. And millions of homes got delivered the LPG sector. What this crisis has shown us, there's one very important thing that has come to front, is that our public sector, which we always malign and we always complain about, has performed incredibly well, whether it is food distribution,
Absolutely
gas
right.
distribution,
Yes.
whether it is the kind of things Ankur is now talking about, preparing apps and getting help to people. And so public sector has done extremely well. But more than that, I want to say one thing, that our government and IAS has performed far better than the governments of many European G7 countries and the government of United States.
Right, I agree with you, Ajay, 100%. And surprisingly so. Surprisingly so. I was very worried in the beginning. I used to discuss that I don't know what will happen to India. But the numbers which we have, and if you compare them with numbers of Europe and America, we are sitting pretty. We are perfectly good. So that is very nice.
And that's all.
The next question goes to Dinesh Agarwal, Dixie. Okay, you are already there. You wanted to add something, Dixie? Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying that is all the more reason, what I was mentioning, that the global outlook of politicians and businessmen will perhaps change. While I'm not saying that the COVID is going to go away in the next few weeks or months, it will continue and you'll have to keep having spikes. But the whole management, I think, will be very highly appreciated, and that will increase the confidence in India. And that's the opportunity which we have to capitalize on. Keeping in view the point which I mentioned earlier about low capital consumption, the dissonance, which has been created, through the China, attitude and happenings in the past few months. A combination of all of that, and coupled with the fact that in the past few years, I think there has been more confidence in the banking infrastructure. I mean, despite all the skeletons that keep coming out from the cupboard, but the fact remains our banking has remained solid. The structural changes on the labor laws, the FDI movement, etc. I think all of this is favorable, and it's really for us to scale up, the capacities, build up that innovation culture, and give that confidence to multinational companies that you should develop products and make them in India for the Indian market and for the export markets. Right? That's
Absolutely right. My next question was to go to you on the exactly same lines.
Right.
So in Panasonic, you've been importing a lot of solar panels into India. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you know that industry pretty well.
Right.
In all the solar panels, there is a chip. Yeah. And in the chip, there is a metal called silicon, which is not made in India. If you are thinking of tomorrow, manufacturing of solar panels 100% in India, microprocessor and chip, any idea you have how we can develop, or importing is fine?
Also,
to lower the cost. To lower the cost.
So, today in a module, roughly about 60% is the cost of the cell, right? What we have done is we have moved a step forward, and instead of importing the entire modules, we've now started importing the cells and doing the assembly there. So to that extent, the value addition, which Dubal was referring to earlier, Ravindra was referring to earlier, we're doing more value addition here in India. And while I don't see in the next couple of years for us to do a cell manufacture here, because the scales will justify that manufacturing is high. But we in each of the businesses that we are doing, we are increasing the local value addition in India. So just to give you another small example, we started selling modular kitchens in Panasonic brand for last 1 year. And from this year, we will be only importing the outer panel, which is more for aesthetics point of view, all the interior components will be made in India by us. So that's how we are increasing. And as I mentioned earlier, we're not looking at it only from the India point of view. We're quickly scaling it up to South Asian markets and the African markets, where our products and our prices are accepted very well. So that's how we're doing.
Okay, lovely. Anybody wants to add on this? Then we'll ask. Then I'll go to Dugal.
Ankur wants to say something.
Yeah, Ankur, you want to add?
Yeah, Roger, I have worked in this sector for about 3 years. There are
Yes.
3 opportunities which we have right now. As far as the panels are concerned, the best panel is being manufactured in Germany. And I know a lot of companies who want to come and have a tie-up in India because they don't know how to do business in India, because India is a very big market for them. Second, the best for the batteries is Japan. Again, they are looking for a tie-up with India because to balance the grid, you will need batteries. I have seen batteries as big as 500 megawatt, as big as a 500 square yard plot.
Yes.
And then simultaneously, if we have to balance the grid, the third opportunity is SCADA. An intelligent grid management system, these are the 3 things which are going to be the future in the next 3-4 years, not very far away as we move towards renewable energy. Thank you.
I agree with you.
So, Ankur, I'd just like to retort to that. So, this is where our, the balancing of social objectives versus the, what should I say, the business objectives comes into play. So, as a country today, we are celebrating the fact that the per unit generation cost of solar has come down to below 2.8 rupees, right? So if you want to continue to celebrate that, then there is no way you can bring in German modules. I've been in this business now for 5 years, trying to sell a module at two times the price of what is selling in the market, and I know the difficulties that we face. So unless we see the totality of the whole project in terms of its life cycle over a 15-20 years period, we will not be able to bring in higher technology by looking at a short-term goal. So that's the unfortunate.
Dixie, I agree with you. In fact, I have been protesting over the years. These are absurdly, idiotic prices. 2.44 is no price. At this price, and in fact, no PPA is being honored. The state governments are moving out. This, I totally agree. We need to have a realistic price which has to be discovered. And just for one information, L&T has developed a hybrid module, which they are still experimenting in Pune, which can be of great use to anybody who wants to do further business. They can get in touch with L&T, or maybe with me, I can put you in touch with them.
So I think Roger knows what I'm going to talk about. So Roger, in fact, came to Cyprus. We signed an MOU to install 50 megawatts of power here.
In front of President of India, say that.
The President of India, in front of President of India. We did a lot of solar power in Spain. And Pandey knows I visited him in Gandhinagar when Modi ji was Chief Minister, met him several times. The reason we could not do something of quality, and this includes when Modi ji was a very effective Chief Minister, was the constant price pressure. And there was a point at which we said, if you want me to set up a PV plant which is going to last 25 years, 30 years, and you don't want me to do any financial machinations, the kind of machinations that resulted in collapse of Lanco and several other companies, I said there needs to be integrity in technology. You can't mess with technology. So Dinesh, you made a very important point that if we are just going to say, make it cheap, make it cheap, make it affordable, and we lose sight of the integrity of technology, if we lose sight of the quality, if you lose sight of the longevity of the product, you cannot compete in the world purely on price and purely on cheap labor and purely on cheap resources. At the end of the day, you compete in the world on quality. I think Rajesh will have something to say about that also.
Rajesh, you want to add?
Ajay, I'd like to respond to that. Well, certain projects which were funded by World Bank, etc., we always went in for QCBS. But now Niti Aayog, as I know, has taken a conscious decision about a couple of months ago that we will not follow the L1 model, but we'll go in for the QCBS thing. So that should, I think, take care of Dixie's concerns and your concerns also.
Right. From India's point of view. Okay. So my next question goes to Rajesh. You want to say something?
No, I just wanted that this was specific to solar, what Ajay mentioned with a specific anecdote. But
Yes.
the overall problem of not being able to produce a class quality still remains. And without that, uh, we will have this scenario of Vietnam or Malaysia or even now Bangladesh beating us in the world market. So this is a very important thing, that quality has to be addressed, and whatever is required to do it, whether joint ventures to begin with, all that is essential. We have a very promising, at the moment, environment in the country, that young engineers are going with startups. They are failing a lot, but a number of them are succeeding also. And I have visited the Tech Fest of engineering colleges also. Let us be honest, as compared to what we were doing hands on in our college, a lot action is happening in the college campuses these days. And I was talking to Amarjit some time back. Uh, the his children in US, the kind of say car which is produced in the engineering college campus in US in their Tech Fest, and similarly an engineering college in Chandigarh, their children are also producing cars for the Tech Fest. A minor difference may be that there is more of electric car being produced in the US campus, but definitely in much more action oriented studies of engineering is currently going on. A lot of this entrepreneur culture is there. So it is just that some kind of a shift is taking place, which was not there during our times. So we should be optimistic on that. The whole question of quality will be addressed as more and more this opening or our capability to really compete in world market is tested.
Absolutely right, Rajesh. I'm a panel host. I'm not supposed to comment, but I can't hold myself commenting, on this point. See, when we do our projects and there is a cost constraint, what we do? सबसे महंगा Germany, then we come to Italy, then lower than that is Turkey. After Turkey is China, and that is the basic attitude we guys have. And secondly, in the world is moving so damn fast. I mean, you guys will be appalled. I plan to put up a project of, let's say, electrical vehicle today. By the time I put up the project, it'll take me an year. Something else will develop. Electric vehicle will go out of the market. This is what is happening. It is a major. I am amazed by the speed by which the world is moving. Look at SpaceX. I mean, it has overtaken NASA. I'm amazed by the velocity. So we have to be very, very, here we are talking of India to grow from every point of view. There the world is reaching somewhere else. So it has to be in our perspective also. Sorry, yeah. Okay, I will take Dougie. Next question to you, Dougie. You are a banker. Can we have focus on Dougie, please? As you said the other day to me, soul banker, heart engineer. What was that? Can you repeat it?
Yeah, by profession, I'm a banker now, but by heart, my heart is still in engineering. So I like to tinker with things and understand why they work the way they do.
Okay, we always say when a Malayali speak Punjabi, he becomes very dangerous. So you are of the same combo, huh?
Okay.
So I think you will understand my dilemma when I ask you this question, Dagal. It's a very serious question. And I've been wondering since 1990 when I held my first credit card. All the credit cards, there are two words written on the credit card. One is Visa, the other is MasterCard. Every time all over the world credit card is used, money goes to America. You agree with me?
Not really. I mean, there's a small portion that goes to.
If I'm wrong, and do you have any idea that India can come up with a credit card that no money goes out of India? India tried RuPay, but that was a debit card. That was a cash card, and it was very funny when we introduced RuPay. Modi ji introduced it. It was a brilliant idea. These Visa and MasterCard went to UN to complain. India has done this. I mean, atrocious. Can you please explain to our viewers and our panelists, please? All yours, Dougal. This is a typical banker question.
Okay, it's actually it's a pretty simple flow. So you have Visa, Master, there's Amex also. These are just switches. Yeah. See, these have been around. There's a lot of benefit of credit cards. You know, they are easy to use. They are both credit and debit. The transaction doesn't need to go to the US every time. It's a switch. You can switch it locally. A lot of the transactions are domestic. You know, these Visa, MasterCard are just intermediaries. So there is an issuing bank, there is an acquiring bank. So it's usually a three-party model and how you split the fees between the three parties. But yes, for every transaction that you do, actually the merchant is paying, typically it's called a merchant discount rate, maybe 3%. Out of that 3%, a very small portion goes to Visa or MasterCard. A bulk of it actually goes to the card issuer. So if the card is issued by State Bank of India, they get a pretty big chunk of that commission. So yeah, but you know, if you look at the overall scheme of things, I think it has facilitated a lot of e-commerce, digital commerce. So it does, in my mind, it does make sense, the convenience it provides. But moving beyond that, you know, especially in India, things like, you know, with UPI, in China, you have China Union Pay. I think these are excellent domestic schemes. They're much lower cost. And then, of course, you have the likes of Paytm and all that. So I think in the future, there's always this dilemma whether you should have one or two big players. So, you know, there's uniformity in terms of what you do, or you let have 50 different options and, you know, e-wallets, etc. But then it has security implications also. So to my mind, I think what Master and Visa have done, I think it's a great thing. But going forward, your bigger transaction volumes are domestic. And in the domestic space, RuPay, UPI, this is where the growth would be. And I think a lot of that will be controlled domestically. Now, you could always argue with Google Pay coming in. You know, does Google Pay have a role to play? Now,
Again,
maybe
my question is very simple. I want India PASA to stay in India. You introduce Visa, even if it is 0.00001%, it is going abroad, right? So Google will take money also. Google will take in very less amount, but will.
What's the issue if 0.001% is going somewhere else? We are living in a global world. The CEO of MasterCard is Mr. Banga, an Indian. So it's going into his bonus payment. So it's a good thing.
No, that is a very good reasoning. If that is how we want to go, then it is a capitalist economy. We can choose whichever is easy and which
Roger,
is good.
Can I ask a question, Roger, from Google?
Sure.
Actually, related to what you are saying, and maybe Pandey, because you also work in finance and revenue. Google, there's a lot of talk now that the collapse of oil prices and ultimately the depression would lead to a de-dollarization of global economy. And China has just introduced a digital currency. Do you see the future that the world will trade with each other without dollar, with another currency, or through a digital currency?
In the medium term, and medium meaning 5 to 10 years, the cyber currencies, I think, will come into play. But in the near future, next 4 or 5 years, I see more of dollars than anything else. So, you know, the strength that dollar has, the US dollar, I think is a huge advantage for, you know, providing stability in the markets. You know, so it's either gold or US dollar. And right now I would bet on US dollar. So dollarization is here to stay for the, let's call it the short to medium term. Beyond that, but then again, who has jurisdiction over cyber currencies? Should it be, you know, Facebook issuing a currency? Then we go back to the same question that who's controlling it.
That was my next question to Dr. Ajay. You're actually my questions. Not fair. Anybody wants to add on this?
No, I think it's a matter of the same thing, right? That caution and trust, which I spoke about earlier. So today, you know, Ajay, to answer you, you know, while China perhaps has the, you know, the might and the grit to introduce its own currency, but would you trust China with its currency? I mean, you know, so that's the
exactly.
So And
Can we
especially
trust
this,
China?
yeah. So especially post-COVID, this whole caution and mistrust is going to take a more deeper meaning. At least for
Lakshman
next.
Rekha.
Yeah.
Lakshman Rekha is home, then it is your city, then it is your state, then it is your country.
See, if I may come back, I think all these currency and other things are relevant, but the bigger challenge for the financial world is losses. A lot of businesses are going to fail, and that's going to have a huge ripple effect. So I think that is what we need to watch out. It's not going to happen in the short term because a lot of governments have come in to support businesses. But if you look over 12 months, there are businesses that are going to suffer a big blow. And we are seeing, in hospitality, in travel, in transportation. So I think that's the big area we need to watch out for. There are going to be a lot of business failures. And then how do we react to that? The other big theme is unemployment. You can see numbers creeping up in US and lot many markets, and unemployment has a long shadow. So it will have implications, and those are things from an economic point of view we need to watch out, is business failures and unemployment.
Dougal, I just have a question on this. So, while short term, I think there's no disagreement, that these impacts would happen. But, let's say country like US there's a certain consumption levels that has been built up over the years, right? Maybe it is debt funded. Do you really think that those consumption levels will come down?
Again, if you look at US, 50% of the US population, see the economic disparity in US is pretty big. Half the US population hardly has any savings. And if you're out of a job, you don't have an income, where there's no question of consumption, you are just barely able to survive on, so it has a huge impact, I feel. And going back to that point, so employment is important because in a lot of the, especially Western economies, savings are not much. People are not saving. Of course, the government will provide you support. But so employment and continuity of business, survival, I think to my mind are the biggest factors in the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah, so I'm not talking of the next 18 or even 3 years. I'm saying the consumption levels, which has been traditionally built up in the US economy, despite all the disparity, let's say 3 years later, don't you think it will bounce back to the same levels?
3 years, yes. 3 years, yes. But for the next 1 year, I think if I don't have income, I don't have so much of free cash, definitely I will look at where I'm spending my money.
So the moot question remains that there's a consumption which has been created in the US and the European world. There'll be a void for some time. Now, after 2-3 years, when it comes back, who's going to fill that void? Will it be China or will it be some other countries? Right, and that is where perhaps lies the opportunity for India.
Right, Dixie. That is where I'm coming to. You are absolutely right. So we move on to Rajesh now.
Ankur has something to say. Ankur has raised hand.
Sorry?
Ankur has raised hand.
Ankur, where is he? I cannot see him.
Yeah.
Ankur?
Yes.
Yeah, my bandwidth is low. मैं थोड़ी देर वो किया मैं को yeah. Here, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Roger, you had asked a question that why don't we have a unified card like you mentioned, RuPay? Now,
Right.
Just before this pandemic hit us, we had pretty well gone ahead in every sort of transport, every financial transaction, be it private sector, be it public sector, and that would have been totally Indian. But because of this crisis, that has gone on backward, but shortly within a year or so, you should be seeing it. And the reason it is being delayed, because we have to replace the infrastructure, for example, at toll plaza or at bank ATMs, the infra has to be replaced so as to recognize that particular card. So IT department is working on that, and shortly we should see that.
Ankur, I'll personally come and hug you if you do that. Salute to you. Lovely.
No, in fact, we had a review just last week also on this.
Lovely.
The
That
team
is
from
a
Mumbai, yeah.
beautiful move. That was one of my major dilemmas about India to come forward. Rajesh, my next question is to you. Sorry, you've been waiting for a long time. So, okay, you are also responding on chat. I can see. All right. Rajesh, you are a revenue man. So my question about India goes to you. All the market of India is completely shattered because of COVID. Now, anything which we import, China obviously has an upper hand. If we buy, India is a signatory of WTO, so is China, and so is US, and so are many countries. Now, considering WTO in mind, do you think India should impose MIP, minimum import price, on goods so that Indian industry can be saved? Rajesh.
Yeah, Roger, there is one thing we need to understand, that there are all commodities have WTO bound rates. But the way India has been operating for last 15 years or so at least, we are having customs tariffs much below the WTO mandated rates. So there is definitely a scope for taking them higher if we want to protect the domestic industry. And if you have seen the budget of 2020, which was a huge disappointment for trade and industry, so many finer points were not seen. On a large number of items, the customs duty rates have been increased as much as from 5% to 30%. So there was this thinking going on at that time when the budget was presented on 1st February. There was no such fear pandemic of COVID, and it was almost business as usual so far as India is concerned. Despite that, the rates had been taken up. So there is a conscious attempt to protect certain sectors which have seen the onslaught. And one more point I would like to mention here is that we have seen that what is the, if I can use that crude word, greed for capturing Indian market, that we have seen that RCEP was being negotiated for years together. The moment India withdrew from RCEP, Japan announced that without India, ab kya maza bacha hai? And since then, RCEP is dead practically. So, and the way India ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, which has been there for years, the way India has been almost a loser with each ASEAN country in terms of its balance of trade, we need to really think that whether we are gaining as a country, or we are making our industry, and not only industry, our agriculture sector also threatened by such free trade agreements. So it is not just a kind of a mantra of globalization which will help us. We have to think specifically. If we have seen that the whole focus post 1991 has been on industry, on trade, but what has grown hugely is Indian horticulture exports. The quantum of horticulture produce being exported out of India has grown many fold since 1991. The agriculture products, I was checking up immediately after lockdown from the Navasheva port, which is the largest port of India with 40% trade being handled. The major volume of export consisted of some medicines plus vegetables export. So even during the lockdown period, India was hugely exporting vegetables and mangoes, of course, the Alfonso mangoes. So this is something which is our strength. We have developed this over last 25 years or so. We have taken our vegetables, our fruits to the global market. Probably there we need to also build upon. It is not just the focus on industry alone. If we are strong on that, we have had actually a very strong regime of control over our farmers. They were not able to sell their produce beyond their local APMC limits. So a lot of stifling of that sector was there. Recently in Gujarat, for example, they have opened up this dadagiri of APMCs. So we expect a lot of action happening there also. And while we are discussing all this, I was thinking that our friends in Ajay Goel and Duggal, or those who are not the panelists here, but across the globe, they must be shocked at the topic we are discussing when they juxtapose with the images of the lakhs of migrants who are walking back home with the children, with the ladies, and no food, no water to drink. So, what kind of India are we talking about? So, I feel that this kind of a situation where we have a huge rural population also with no skills or very low skills, probably that utilization of them locally for exports in sectors like agriculture, fisheries, horticulture also is a major potential area both for jobs as well as for exports. So these areas also need to be looked at, not just the industry where in any case there is a focus. So we have to think on all these lines because our problem is of huge scale also. We constantly say almost like a cliche that we have a huge demographic dividend. But this demographic dividend, we have seen that the moment there is a caste agitation, becomes a demographic disaster. That suddenly there is a breakdown of transportation completely. Cities are completely in chaos. So it is not just demographic dividend. Unless we have upskilling of these people, we are hitting at a demographic disaster also. So we have to act fast on all fronts so as to come out of it. And probably this is an opportunity that this whole industry urban centric model of development is really not going to have a comprehensive solution for Indian problems. That's my view.
Lovely, lovely, Rajesh.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'll just like to react to Rajesh. Rajesh, I was.
My question was simply on MIP actually, if that can be kept as a topic, because I've got many other questions to ask.
Go ahead.
My specific question was MIP. Should India impose MIP or should we do without it? Or should we increase MIP over WTO rates?
Should I answer it?
Yeah, that you, I think, answered.
Yeah.
You said
Okay.
it's already lower than WTO.
Yeah, Dinesh.
No, I was just reacting to Rajesh, in terms of, the farm produce and, local generation of employment. So you're absolutely bang on there. So, I've headed, food processing and cold chain business for Voltas for about 3 years. I was trying to create a new business. So there is obviously a huge amount of, disintermediation, which is possible and which should be done. And because only then there would be a possible attraction of capital into the cold chain investments and also into the food processing equipment. So there is no denying in the fact that India produces a lot, but also India wastes a lot of its produce. It's a known fact. So export potential and hence employment linked to that, there is no ambiguity about that. But we are still again caught up with those intermediaries which are politically backed, and they have their axe to grind, they have their money to be made. They are the biggest disenablers in this entire value chain. And I think all of us have seen, at least we have seen in Bombay, and I'm sure you've seen in Delhi, during this lockdown, we got the freshest of vegetables at cheapest of the prices that we have ever seen. Now, this basically happened because we reached out directly to the farmers to get their farm produce at cheaper prices. The farmers were happy, the consumers were happy, right? So I think these are some of the known facts, which are unfortunately stalling specifically the fruits and vegetable industry in the country. To answer that. Now, as far as the migrant workers is concerned, I think there's an onus also on the industry side. I mean, these are basically the informal sector which is the most hit in this the pandemic, because all the other people in some way are getting compensated, including the industry labor is getting compensated by their employers in some way. But this informal sector, including construction workers, carpenters, electricians, etc., who had no firm employment, they're the ones who are getting affected. So here the government can only help to an extent by giving some one-time compensation, but it is basically again the industry and the associations which have to come forward and use a part of their collections to support this people to get rehabilitated. right? Yeah, that's my
Thank you, Dixie. My next
Roger,
question
I
goes.
wanted to, if I can, Roger, add to that.
Yeah, you can add. My next question also goes to you, so you can add together.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So, Ajay, you have traveled the world. You've been to US. You've seen vertical city like Manhattan. You've seen how Shanghai has taken it long time back. You've seen infrastructures all over the world, like the railroads, the highways. Where do you think India stands? When you go abroad, like when I go abroad and come back to India, I think there is a lot to be done in this field. What are your views? And this is a very interesting topic. Everyone can participate after Ajay's response, please. Ajay, over to you.
So I believe I have two views of infrastructure. One view is the one that you mentioned, the vertical cities, the highways, the airports, the railways, the high-speed railways, and so on and so forth. I believe the most important infrastructure is the basic infrastructure for a human being, which is sanitation, clean water, toilet, and private space. So in this respect, I think this government, Prime Minister Modi, did something incredible, which nobody has done before, is that he started at both ends. He said, yes, let's build highways. Let's build 70 kilometers of highways every day. Let's do trains. Let's do fast trains. But first, let's build a lot of toilets. Let's give clean water to people. So I think that needs to remain a priority. And if this COVID-19 has shown us, we need infrastructure that at every village level, we need a better hospital. We need medical care. We need every home to have clean water, and this scheme to provide housing to everybody. I mean, this is important. Can you imagine what would have happened if COVID spread in Dharavi? If it spread through some of the other slums? I don't know how it got controlled, but
it's already there, Ajay. It's already there.
So infrastructure also means protecting all these people. To answer your first question, the short answer is yes. India needs to protect its small, home-based and medium industries. It needs to again start from home-based industries. There used to be so many people in the households in Ludhiana that used to make sweaters, knitwear. All got destroyed by imported knitwear. Agra used to produce a lot of shoes. It all got destroyed because cheap shoes started coming from China and from elsewhere. All of our very small micro industries started getting destroyed because there was no protection for them. So I don't know if minimum price is the only protection, but there needs to be protection for them. And now I just posted one message in reply to Prem Singh. In fact, in November and December, I drafted a whole proposal for PMO, which was under consideration. And I said, it's all fine what you're doing for infrastructure from top down, trickle down economy, giving support to big business, reducing the taxes. Why don't we have a national program for supporting rediwalas and rickshawalas? Why don't we recognize that these are the veins of our country? This is how our whole country functions. Can you imagine my parents in Kurukshetra? Every day, the local shopkeeper brought them fresh food and he brought them milk. So he had to India functions because of this grassroots economic activity. And somehow we have always been obsessed with the big picture, big industry, big industrialists, big corporations, big foreign investment. Unless we empower these people with cheap financing, with technology, with access to basic infrastructure, housing, living, safety, security. You know, the guy has to sleep near his ready to protect his mangoes in 40 degrees heat for 7 days till he sells his mangoes. Why can't we give him a solar panel ready with a small air conditioning running on DC so he can close his ready, his mangoes are protected, his food stuff doesn't get spoiled. These are the kind of proposals I gave to PMO. And I said, there is so much technology there today that at a very low cost, we can empower these people. We can make their quality of life better. We can improve their life standards. And that is what needs to happen, Roger. It's not just a question of MIP. It needs to be a holistic approach to first help the man on the grassroots. And Pandey just wrote about the Mazdoors walking 1,000 kilometers. You know, I was looking at those images. I thought, 3,000 years ago, one guy ran from Sparta to Athens during the Spartan Wars somewhere, Sparta to somewhere, 42 kilometers, and the world still has Olympics and marathons. I mean, Biharis and their, the grit of these people, the faith of these people, the strength of these people and the courage of these people. I mean, we as a country, we both need to be ashamed and we need to celebrate these people. So I think any question that we are answering today, and Prime Minister said something very important. He said local, local, local. That's it, self-reliance. But it starts with grassroots. Local doesn't start with, sorry to say, Dinesh, with you, or even with Ankur, even though he's working in government and everything he does is for the public sector. Local and Atmanirbharta starts with the Mazdoor, the Rediwala, the Rickshawala, the farmer.
Can I add? I appreciate your views, emotional views, Ajay. The problem is that GDP input in India, about 20% is farmers, about 30% is industry manufacturing, and rest 50% is service industry. And infrastructure is connected with service industry tremendously. If I can put up to you guys that one figure which I have, internationally the cost of freight is 25 paisa per kg, and in India we pay 4 to 5 rupees per kg, and it doesn't go to anybody's pocket. It is because we have pathetic infrastructure, and if we are juicing and if we are milking industry all the time and putting all the burden on industry, and this is one of them. So this is my question: how do we improve it? Open to the panel. Dixie, you want to take it?
No, I'll first react to what Ajay said, about what is local. And, I think this is where I was saying earlier that, I think we have a clouded view about capitalists, about the private money that comes in. And each time there's a private money coming in, whether it's insurance sector or food and processing sector, there's a lot of noise created. Our autonomy is gone. हम लोग अब, विदेशियों के गुलाम बन जाएंगे, and all that shit. So we have to accept one fact, and I'm not discrediting what the government is doing, but the fact remains that a rupee invested in the private sector is much more efficient than what a rupee invested in government is, and we have seen it over the years. I mean, a simple thing like CSR funding, which was started a few years ago. Today, if you go take up any area, we have been working as a company, we have been working in some of these villages. The amount of effort with, the small money that we have been able to make a difference, I don't think a government program could have made a difference, the kind of difference there, whether it's in power generation, in water enablement, in health and sanitation, and so on. Having said that, what I'm saying is that in these sectors, whether, which we know that India has an inherent strength in, and India has an inherent requirement, we should be more open. We should be more open to investment. We should be more open to a public-private partnership and make things happen that way. That's the only way to accelerate things and get things done in the country and create that base for global scale. So that's what I was.
Okay, lovely, Dinesh. Ankur, are you there? Our next question goes to Ankur.
Yeah, Roger.
Yeah, Ankur. We will now wind up with our closing statement along with a question which I'll ask you. So that will be a closing statement, and after that we will open the panelists to some questions which have been asked by our audience. So I'll start with you. I was supposed to go long, but we already at 5 o'clock, so I will couple up something. So I will give 2 minutes to everybody, if you can please answer, and then we can take up audience questions. Ankur, I was going to ask you something about policing in India, something about judiciary in India, the collegium method, but we don't have time, something about tourism. So adding all these three parameters, judiciary, policing, and tourism, can you make a closing statement, please? Ankur.
All right. Quickly, since we are running out of time, coming to policing. The same police whom we used to blame, I think over the past few weeks, whenever you look at the media, you find positive images coming over. Now, the citizens are the
Absolutely
same,
correct.
the policemen are the same, no special training has been given. It only shows that when the crisis comes, all of us work together. So basically, there is no inherent defect in the police system. It is just a mindset, the trust between the citizen and the police. That was a quick take on that. Coming to tourism, all of you have traveled all over the world, and I have traveled extensively in India also. I find our natural beauty is no less compared to any other country. What we lack is just a couple of things. One, infrastructure. We don't have adequate infrastructure in the tourist places. Two, discipline. We don't have self-discipline. If we just have these two things, I think our tourist industry can be a great industry. As far as judiciary is concerned, no comments, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankur. Lovely. So can I have Dixie? I would ask you to can we have Dixie on the spotlight, please? Dixie, my question is to, of course, give a ending statement, and then you can also highlight something about what India should do in defense and space and medical tourism, where we have a lot of scope, and of course our how we the hospitals and how we do our medical care. Dixie.
So I think in terms of what India should do, I think I've spoken a lot. So I think India has its inherent strengths. First of all, we must believe in our administration, in our government, and the stability of the government is very important. We must give credit to the government for what it's done in the past 7 years in bringing that stability and basic creation of infrastructure. I think it is still committed to doing that. I'm not supporting any political party. All I'm saying is that this ideology and this direction should continue. In terms of the industry, I think what we need to do is, as an industry, is not just manufacture. We need to innovate and manufacture. And as Dupal was saying, move towards areas which add value. We need to create products which are differentiated and create products which address the need of India, specific needs of India, and also start looking at the neighboring markets, the South Asian markets and African market as an extended geography. So this would need some time and investment, but we should be bold and willing to take that investment. Again, I'm saying that yes, if the government helps and supports in this, it's great. That will give more confidence to the industry. So we must all, just set aside this current setback. There will be a current setback for the next 6 months, 1 year, but look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is growth. Every sector you can talk about, there is bound to be growth because of the low per capita consumption. So with that belief, continue to invest in people, in design, in market, in brand building, continue to invest. Coming to the two specific areas you spoke about, I think there's no doubt that medical tourism in India is an opportunity, but the fact also remains that India is underserved in itself. I can tell you from my personal experience, the poor quality of healthcare we have, even in cities like Haridwar or the villages around Haridwar where our workers come from. So we have about 5,000 workers coming from that area, and it's pathetic. If there's any little seriousness, the nearest place is Dehradun, right? So that's a reality we are grappling with. But again, I think this COVID situation has taught us so many things that physical presence is not necessary. Of course, physical presence is a must, like things like surgery, etc. But in terms of advice, you can actually have remote advice, connect the entire medical fraternity, and start building up capacities at the local level, at the village level, at the panchayat level, and so on. This work is happening, but I think it needs to be accelerated. So the two things which are happening. So medical tourism will bring in money to the private chains of hospital, and then the private chains of hospital should use that money to create space for people who cannot afford it, which they are already doing in the cities. They should also use that for spreading into rural areas so that their own competence, which they have, the panels of doctors that they have, can be used for imparting rural health care, right? So that's so medical healthcare as a government initiative should be supported and grown. And there's no doubt that the Indian medical healthcare quality is already becoming well-known and established. The second question, Roger, you asked me was about tourism in general, or
medical tourism.
Medical tourism, I just answered.
Space and defense.
Sorry, defense. Okay. Yeah. So there again, I think I don't know whether getting into the space. Are there any economic or commercial reasons for doing it? And we should obviously not doing it just for for the sake of what should I say, pride. I don't think we should invest money in terms of being a one-up, saying that we are also one of the countries who reached moon. If we truly see a commercial benefit, like for example, we truly see a commercial benefit in launching satellites cheapest in the world, right? There's a benefit for us, for our own country, we should go for that. But spending on space, otherwise, I'm not really, one in support.
You want to go to Mars, huh?
Yeah. So if you need more speed, but defense for sure, because it has a
we should go independent in defense.
Yes, so it has a positive repercussion on the other industry, as we have seen. The fallout on the on the innovation and the engineering capability improvement in the country. There's a lot of positive on that, so I think we should spend on the defense. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dinesh. It was lovely. Okay, next is Dugal. Navinder Dugal, please. Can we have it on the spotlight? Yeah, Dugal, my question to you is specific, and with that, you can give your closing comments also. First question is, how many banks are going to go bankrupt? And how many insurances are going to fail? And then you can give your closing comment also. Only you can answer from this panel these two questions. And I think it will help everybody to know how many banks are going to fail, that they can shift their money somewhere else safe.
I hope no bank goes bankrupt because it has a lot of other repercussions on the investors and account holders. And, frankly, COVID and banking, I think banks are doing quite okay under COVID. So it's not a challenge. It's not like the earlier financial crisis. So I don't think
pay the money back, man. India, it's bad. Unless RBI helps them, I don't think so. FBI can also survive today.
A lot of governments have stepped in a big way. So to the earlier point, it depends on how many businesses fail. So if lots of SMEs start failing, that will create a lot of stress on the banks. So that is something to watch out for. So nobody can say, how many banks will fail. I really hope no banks fail. The other thing, very quickly, since you mentioned about the financial sector, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done, and talking more from an India perspective. If you want to make India a much bigger manufacturing hub, you need to liberalize much more in terms of flows of capital, foreign exchange, deeper capital markets, interest rates too high in India. So there's a multitude of things that need to be done on the financial sector side. The other thing, just to close out, other day actually I went, if I'm a foreign entity that I want to go and set up business in India, how will I go about it? So I Googled, it threw me out a page called FIFP, Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal. I went to that portal. It's a series of circulars, do this, don't do this. So if you want to market India as a destination for business, you need to do a much, much better job. Go to Singapore's Economic Development Board website. It's a pleasure going to that website. Come home, the place in Asia to do business. So it's so welcoming. So I think the whole marketing approach to this needs to be looked at. Today, I think the way we are approaching it is very, self-centric, if I may say so. You need to bring in some professionals, create much better websites, much more information. It really then creates the right environment for people to look at it. So I think there's a lot more to do. And to Dixie's point, it's not about Indian companies just exporting. It has to be a two-way thing. So you need to invite foreign companies to come into India and encourage Indian companies to also export out. So it has to be a two-way street. And I think you do need to invite foreign investments into India. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Navinder Dugal. Okay, now I move on to Rajesh Pandey. Could we have Rajesh on the screen, please? Rajesh, you can give your closing comments with answering my 3 questions. They were left. Otherwise, I would have asked you one by one. So I don't know if you could do it quickly as possible because we want to finish in another 10 minutes. And you have Ajay after you. You know how elaborate Ajay is. So he's going to take another 7 minutes. So my 3 questions is very simple. What do you think of rupee to dollar parity? Do you think rupee bundling down is good or it is bad? It should increase? No. What is your idea? Number 1. Second is, what do you think about labor laws? Should they go? Should they stay? And don't give a political answer, please. Beach ka. That is not what I am looking for. And third question, of course, is investments in India, as just now Dougal was putting in. They're looking for taxes around 50 to 20% or maybe maximum 25%. This time in the budget, they have been reduced. How much do you think should be the taxes on the industry, which has been milked abundantly till now? You know very well. All the money comes from industry and it is milking industry like nothing. So everything is on industry. All the other fields we are yet to explore and we are yet to extract money from them. So your views, Rajesh, with your closing statement. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. You have given me 3 questions. I'll try to answer 4. The one which Ankur had let go over his head, that also I'll try to answer about the judiciary. Firstly, I'll qualify my answers with that these are my personal views. The rupee dollar parity, which you asked, actually, it is again a question that which side of the dollar divide you are standing. If you are if you are an exporter, then definitely you want a dollar at 85 rupees. So that thing is always there. And since at the moment there is what we are expecting a huge reduction in our import bill thanks to oil prices. There is an SBI chief economist who has predicted that after many decades, India may see a positive current account balance this year. So instead of having current account deficit, we may have a current account surplus this year, which I feel is which I feel is optimistic. But still, with the oil prices at their historic low and there is no sign of their revival also, it's a huge bonanza which is saving our economy in this crisis. So rupee dollar is again a question that for an importer, yes, you want dollars low, but for an exporter, you want them high. And since we want to be a huge exporter, probably not. This is not the realistic level for rupee. Maybe we can allow rupee to slightly depreciate to make our exports more competitive in the world market. But it is also now it has become more of a political question also. But I feel that somewhere with the huge reserves that RBI is sitting upon, rupee has to let come and find its place in the market rather than kind of propping up it between 70 and 75. Next, you asked about labor laws. There is a very strange kind of a situation that over the last 20 years, the entire labor force has been sourced through contractors. So practically the labor is getting a very poor deal. But on paper, we are having very strong labor laws. It is that typical India Hathi Dant mentality that dikhane ke aur, khane ke aur. So we need some real reform. If we want to have some laws, they should be enforceable. Otherwise, free the industry from that burden. That is absolutely essential. That just an inspector from labor department coming and taking his hafta is no protection for labor. That's a real fact. And third is you asked about investment in India. What Duggal mentioned, I think after that there is nothing to say. We have a huge governance problem. It is not just customs tariff. It is our procedures, our mindset, and it is also, as I answered in one of the questions that in the chat, that huge part of the problem lies with judiciary also. You have a very long decision making process in government. Then we have these huge our oversight organizations. We call them 4Cs in the government: CVC, CBI, CAG, and now CIC, Chief Information Commissioner, who constantly breathe down your neck. So with that kind of oversight, you have to make decisions. And after that, there is finally, when a decision is taken, there is a judiciary which in a very insensitive manner puts a stay, and there is no timeline for which the stay will continue. Then there will be a final decision by High Court, which will be immediately stayed by Supreme Court, and then Supreme Court will give a decision after many years. So as I would not like to criticize judiciary being a government employee, but I would like to quote from Justice A.P. Shah, who was Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, that he said that there are fundamental problems with this collegium which you mentioned. He says that it is nothing but a cabal. And I always say that Indian judiciary is suffering from sunstroke, S-O-N stroke. So we have judges appointing their sons and nephews, which is a huge problem today. And there is a huge requirement of judicial reform, both in terms of its justice delivery system as well as its appointment. Without that, mere governance reforms will not do, because finally will be a court which will bring the entire benefit of that reform. We have seen that how foreign investments were stalled by judiciary alone. So both things are related. The governance problems have to be solved, and judiciary is an integral part of it. That's my view. Thank you.
Lovely. I think you missed out on the taxation on companies.
Sorry. Yeah, taxation. Actually, when this government had come last year, the first budget was expected to be a very dream budget, and it was a nightmare budget. And quickly the government realized, and the budget had come on 5th July 2019, and by August there was huge announcements in terms of this corporation tax relief for new industries being set up. The rates were brought down. I think now the realization is there that the corporate tax rates have to gradually come between 15 and 20%. Now, after this setback due to COVID, where huge revenues are falling short and the need is much more, it's multiplied, how the government will able to maintain its decision to keep the corporate tax low. But I feel that realization had come that when other countries have brought down the corporation tax rates, the tax on companies, so how can India attract investment unless you bring down to, if not equal, but somewhat similar levels? So that realization has dawned on the government. I feel that we should look at 15 to 20% realistic corporate tax rate in 2 to 3 years, I feel.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. Now I come to Ajay. Ajay, you have strictly only 5 minutes. Please respond in 5. Ajay, can we have spotlight on Ajay, please? If I tell him 2 minutes, it is just banging my own head. So Ajay, I want you to respond on 2 points, and then you can make your closing statement also. See, you've traveled abroad. You've seen how big lingerie industry is. You've seen Victoria's Secret stores everywhere in India. People go and buy them. In India, we have not developed that industry at all. Is it mindset that we cannot develop it and even export it? That's point number one. Second is retail business. Why can't India do abroad? Just like we have Haldirams. Haldiram is doing tremendously well in some cities abroad, in America and even Europe. And like these, some retail shops, why can't we have them all over the world? What is stopping them? Your views on that and your closing statement. Thank you.
So, Roger, first of all, I think you organized a very interesting discussion. And I don't know where you found all these intelligent people. I'm looking at all these comments, but it looks like we were not totally by chance or by fluke in that college.
I've not asked you another biggest industry in India, which you and I know, because that is when Indians are not mature to understand it also. I know you can speak on it, but that is why I have not asked it. So I've stick myself to only lingerie. Yeah.
So I will not answer many of the questions क्योंकि बोलूँगा तो बोलोगे कि बोलता है. So I will stick to just a closing statement. Look, lingerie industry, it's our mindset, it's our attitudes. I created a first joint venture with an Italian guy to actually manufacture lingerie in India in 1990. And a lot of government departments that we went to at that time, you had to go to Ministry of Textile, and everybody used to say, underwear banaoge? So we explained to them, it's not underwear. We are going to do lace work and everything. So wo kehta hai kya ye porn ka kaam hai? It's a mindset. In India, the attitude towards what you wear underneath, you can't talk about something, you can talk about something. Lingerie is what you wear, in fact, fashion, all of fashion. Beginning with intimate clothing is a very big business.
Yeah.
Indian retail in many ways can go abroad. Don't forget, British economy was saved by Indian corner shop. When Idi Amin expelled hundreds of thousands of Gujarati Indians from Uganda, they all came to the UK. India did not want them. And they set up corner shops. For the first time in England, the culture of a shop where somebody used to open at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, and a person going to work could pick up a newspaper, a milk can, and get a tea. It started with the arrival of Indians. There used to be jokes about it. They say, why Indians never win in hockey? They said every time they get a corner, they set up a shop. Everything Indian has in some way proved itself everywhere in the world. But more than anywhere else, let's not forget it has proved itself in India. We are a civilization with 3,000-4,000 years. This COVID crisis has proved that we are very tenacious people. Yes, we have all of our civilizational problems. I tell people everything bad you can say about India is possibly true. But right now we have to think about what is the opportunity in front of us. So once in a lifetime, there is a constellation which has been put in place by this COVID crisis. This opportunity will not take care of itself. Barat apne aap nahi aa jayegi. Everybody will have to pull their act together, whether it is federal government, whether it is state governments, whether it is businesses, whether it is panchayats, whether it is cooperatives. We have an opportunity that what China achieved in about 25 years, India can achieve in about 5 years. This is my conclusion based on what I have seen around the world. So I would just like to conclude by saying there's an opportunity in front of us, and I hope hundreds of groups and communities are having this same discussion today in India. Because through these discussions among technocrats, engineers, businessmen, entrepreneurs, government officials, some good ideas will come, and then those ideas need to be acted on now without a delay, without any hand-wringing, without any foot dragging. We need to act on those ideas now, and we need to show in business, in economy, in government, the kind of strength we have seen from the Mazdoors walking back to their home. If we can behave in business like that, we can close this gap with China in 5 years, and India has a very good future. So I would like to conclude with that.
Lovely, Ajay. So before we say goodbye, I'm going to take some audience questions. The first one is from Shashi Prabha, 1983 batch. And they want to have some highlight on Atmanirbharta. I think that we have done. Anil Kashyap asked about education, which we have not covered. Anybody to take up how education is going to appear after COVID?
Roger, I wanted Ankur to comment on that, because you said he is responsible for education and IT in Haryana.
Can we have Ankur to talk on the education after COVID, please? Ankur.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. Let me talk about the current scenario. As you knew, from about 15th of March, all my universities, both technical as well as higher, were closed. Since then till now, somehow, even with not many tools, we have been able to cover more than 75 to 80% of the courses online, barring practicals. Now we are moving very fast, totally on an online digital platform as a parallel entity. And in the coming few years, as I spoke in my presentation also, this is a very great opportunity, but the problem is twofold now. That means I assume everybody has a smart device, which is not so. Currently in Haryana as well as in India, the smartphones are about 35% only. Second, even if they have a smartphone, is the net availability there or not? So we'll have to think of new innovative ideas. And I would request all of you to kindly share with us also that how do we keep it as a parallel activity, because social distancing is going to continue for quite some time to come. And some of the universities in US, for example, were already doing the online education, so they didn't have much of a problem. Now, one more opportunity which is cropping up, that many of our students who want to go to, let's say, Harvard, Cambridge, MIT, are not going there. So these universities are now trying to tie up with our universities so that they can offer their online courses through the medium of our universities, which is a great business opportunity cropping up.
Okay, thank you, Ankur. Can I go for Dixie? We are short of time. Okay, you can please. 1 minute, Dixie. Please finish it.
No, I'm just adding to Ankur. So, in fact, my son's been just doing a project right now. He's just, he's studying the various EdTech institutes in India. And to the surprise, he was telling me that over 73% of the courses being imparted in vernacular languages. And these numbers are growing. So as Ankur mentioned, today the need is to connect institutes which don't have good teaching faculty with institutes which are having good teaching faculty in India and abroad. And there's a huge opportunity, and this is what will get unleashed in the coming months and years.
Roger, let me add one thing. For the benefit of everybody and for their children or their friends' children, we have now digitized free material, course-wise, subject-wise, topic-wise, and I'll be happy to share that link where you can find almost nearly everything in the world which has been written on a subject, and one can go by semester-wise also. So that is free for use. So I'll be happy to share that.
Actually, Roger, maybe we should invite Kamal Nan next time to come and talk on this topic.
Yes, definitely. Is Kamal Nan here? Can we have him to
yes,
have his idea?
He's already there. I don't know. He's still there or not.
You put him in. I will sum up by saying that there are a lot of questions from audience on China, that about US China Cold War. Should it happen? What will China do? China, how to retaliate China? Okay, we have Kamal Nan. Can we have your views on education, Kamal? Now, lovely to have you honored.
Thanks a lot, Roger. I'm really honored to win this August company, and I'm saying it from my heart. About education, I feel from Punjab there was an outflow of students. In the last few years, hardly any good students stayed back in Punjab, and they were going primarily to Canada, not to study, but to get immigration there. Some about 25,000 students will go to America also, a few to Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. So this year, I think a lot of students will stay back. And this is an opportunity to have the best of students and give them the best of education, which is possible. And along with that, I feel India could be a destination for international students to study here. For example, like my college, we have students from 42 countries studying on the campus. But then there are a lot of problems with the government, etc. Many a times for getting permissions and visa and this and that. Our government has never thought of India being an education hub. We may not be the best of European countries or America, but we are definitely better than the rest of Asia and Africa and even South America. We have students from 3 countries from South America also studying with us. So a lot can be done to get international students to India and stop Indian students from going abroad, those who just want good education. If some Punjabis are going to Canada to get immigration, it is okay. They're not going there to study, they're not immigration, perfectly okay. But a lot of students go abroad to get good education. Our IITs and our let's say NIT Kurukshetra, we had the best of the brains. Our batches, we had the most intelligent people in India, but we did not have practical exposure. We could not train our students very, very well as per the requirements of industry. We were doing it primarily for, you can say, doing a degree and getting a job. So if you could bring in a lot of practicality in our university system, we could be hub for education also in India, which I don't think anybody has ever considered that India could be a hub. For our own students also, because we have a very big market, and for international students also. That's how I feel.
Lovely, Kang. Thank you so much for your input. And next panel discussion, you are in, huh?
Honor, always an honor.
As we close this, we have had closing comment from everybody. Any audience member who want to ask a question, please raise your hand. Malaji, please spot that guy so that we can have him ask question directly to the panelists on whatever asked. That we have already replied and covered all the other points which I got on the WhatsApp. We have covered all the points except for education. We covered everything. Education also we have covered. So any other question, if a panelist wants to ask, please raise your hand. We have another 3 to 5 minutes. We can answer their questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up.
Mr. Prem Singh.
Yes, sir. Can I ask now?
Yeah, please. Prem Singh, go on. Which batch are you? And introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Prem Singh from 2004 batch. And
lovely.
currently, I am manager with Indian Oil Corporation Limited, posted at Faridabad.
Okay. Your question, please.
And my question is that, sir, since nowadays, because of this COVID, there is a trust deficit among countries also and among people also. So there will be a need to more focus on regionalism. It's like that, as everybody has talked, that industry, it will become more localized. So my point is this, that since India is a country of villages, still right now, and maximum population is around more than 68% population still lives in villages. So why can't we focus over, it's like providing, like we have talked about providing urban facilities in rural areas, but still we are lacking in that sector. And another point which I would like to mention is that why can't we go for industry status to agriculture? If we'll be able to provide industry status to agriculture, then they will get it's like financial benefits from the finance sector. Moreover, there will be more better regulation of.
Got your point.
Yeah,
got your point. Now, can we have who would like to take it up? I think Ankur is more competent to answer this. Ankur, can you?
Yeah. Well, first question, if I understand correctly, is why rural India is not developing as urban India, if that is correct.
He basically asked what was the question which meant was, why don't we give industry status to farmers?
I heard that part also. I'm not responding to that right now because there are many pros and cons, which will not be right in a public forum to discuss. That I can probably answer on a one-to-one basis. So
okay, no problem. Anybody else who's able to answer this? Because I can answer for one point that there is one taxation which is a very big issue. Anybody else wants to take up? Panelist? Dixie, you want to answer this? Ajay? Why can't we have farming as an industry?
Actually, if let me try, Rajesh here. Roger, there was a study by there was an agriculture economist who had also worked in these international organizations. Then he had come and founded Shetkari Sangathan in Pune, Sharad Joshi. So he had calculated that what is the reverse burden put on farmers, and he had said that this is the money what government says that we are subsidizing agriculture. This is actually the reverse subsidy which is being paid by farmers to the government. And from 1950 onwards, he had calculated it was a mind-boggling sum. So giving industry status to agriculture, I feel it's a fundamental question. As I said that farmers, industry can produce in any part of India and sell anywhere in the world. There is no such restriction. But for farmers, they can't even sell in the entire state, leave alone the entire country. There is a huge restriction put on farmers. So we have to free the Indian agriculture from these restrictions, and a lot of change, a lot of policy issues have to be attended. A lot of vested interests, like what Dinesh said, that now we are getting cheaper, fresher vegetable during lockdown because the middleman has been removed. So all these issues have to be addressed. Then only this question for the purpose of debate that industry status to industry will have more meaning.
Right. There is one more. One more important point.
Rajesh,
Farming sector all over the world is hugely subsidized to 30 to 40%. All over the world, America, it is 30 to 40% subsidized. So if you subsidize something, how can you make it industry? Any other viewers, please want to ask question?
Roger, just 1 second, please. Just 1 second. I want to put in a counter question to every panelist. Why are we taking this so-called name middleman in a negative connotation? Yes, he increases the prices, but where does the middleman then get his food from? He also has to earn something. The same applies to Artiyas, who get the produce from the farmers and then further sell it to government agencies. It's a part of the supply chain.
No, let me try to answer this. I think that there is no negative connotation on a middleman. Middleman is an important part of every trade, but in every trade, the middleman, the margin or the profit that is expected to make is regulated, right? Unfortunately, in the farm sector, it is humongous. And I think we all know the reason why it is humongous, because there's so much of political involvement, and funding that goes out of it. So this is what I was trying to say earlier, that if you allow the private sector to come in, and there have been companies like ITC or even Reliance, which have tried to get in, people start getting uneasy, because then you have started questioning the margins in between, which actually will lead to a higher earning of the farmer and a cheaper produce for the end customer. So it is not question about middleman, it is question of what is the justified earning which a middleman should make.
I think, Dixie, this is then an issue for discussion at a later stage, because when corporate moves in, the problem with the farmers face,
Guys, excuse me, everybody. May I interrupt everyone? Guys, we have lost time here. We are out of time completely. We are 45 minutes out of our budget time. There are other meetings people are scheduled for. Everyone wants to leave. So we will, whatever we want to discuss, we can discuss privately. It was a huge honor to become a panel host for my dear classmates and buddies. And I tried to be as formal as possible. And so I'm sure you all guys have done, but we have tremendously done it pretty well. So I congratulate you, everybody. And such an august panel, I think I'm very, very honored for that. And at the same time, the audience, how they behaved and asked questions were very intelligent. And we hope we can have such discussions and panel discussions in future also. And we had a tremendous response. Thank you so much, guys. I'm closing this. Lovely. God bless everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harinder. Thank you, Malla.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
So much.
Very well. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to organizers and panelists.
Thank you so much.
Great going.
Thanks to
everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Harinder. Thank you, Malla.
Especially the panelists.
Huge thanks to Malla and Harinder, of course.
Thank
you.
Thank you.